afternoon tea at the Literature Museum, a space where we slow down, sip some tea, and read the world as literature. Welcome to Afternoon Tea at the Literature Museum. I'm Teresa, and of course, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Sonia.
Hi everybody, I'm Sonia.
Today, we're going to talk about a word that may sound unfamiliar, Anthropocene. Simply put, it's a term used by some scientists to describe the idea that human activity has changed the Earth so significantly that we may be living in a new geological age. The word itself comes from two parts. Anthropos means human, and scene, a suffix used in geology to describe epochs, like the Holocene, which is the age we're officially still in. So, when we say Anthropocene, we are literally talking about the age of humans. That's a bold claim. But are we really living in such an age? When did this so-called age of humans actually begin? Was there a turning point? Let's say, a moment when humans started dramatically reshaping the planet? Sonia, I know that you've been exploring how the Industrial Revolution might connect to this idea. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, of course. As you said, the Anthropocene is a bold claim because there is not yet sufficient evidence to formally declare a new geological epoch. Scientists are now still debating whether there is enough proof to justify this suggestion. Many scholars argue that the Anthropocene began with the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. The primary cause is the large-scale burning of organic carbon in fossil fuels. It enabled industrial production and accelerated the rise in carbon dioxide emissions.
So, just to clarify, when we say humans have reshaped the planet, are we mainly talking about carbon dioxide and climate change? Or does it go beyond that? For example, are we also looking at things like deforestation, plastic pollution, or even species extinction? Sonia, what kinds of changes are scientists actually using as evidence?
The impacts of the Anthropocene are not limited to CO2 emissions. In fact, some experts argue that the Anthropocene didn't begin with industrialization at all. It may go all the way back to the agricultural era.
The agricultural era? You mean when humans first started to grow crops and domesticate animals? How could that be?
Yes, according to the book The Human Age by Diane Oakman, humans have transformed about 75% of the Earth's land surface. Agricultural land alone accounts for roughly one-third of the world's ice-free land. And here is something shocking. Humans and our domesticated animals now make up about 90% of all mammal biomass on Earth.
Wow, no way. That's new to me. I had no idea. Especially the human population and domesticated animals part. That's insane.
I know, right? I was shocked too when I first read it. It really shows how humans have become the dominant force on the planet. Our activities like large-scale deforestation, plastic production, intensive farming, and heavy reliance on fossil fuels are leaving marks that could be visible in the geological record millions of years from now.
Wait, when you say geological record, what does that actually mean? Are scientists saying that future generations could literally see evidence of us in rock layers?
Exactly. Scientists believe that things like plastic particles, radioactive residues from nuclear testing, concrete, and even chicken bones from industrial farming could become part of future rock strata. These materials may serve as markers of the Anthropocene.
That's kind of scary. It sounds like we are creating a permanent signature on Earth.
Yes, and that's why there is so much debate about when the Anthropocene truly began. Some scientists argue for the Industrial Revolution because of the sharp rise in carbon emissions. Others point to the mid-20th century, what has known as the Great Acceleration, when population growth, energy use, and consumption dramatically increased.
That's really interesting. So the starting point isn't just a technical detail. It actually changes how we think about responsibility, right? If we say it began with agriculture, then humans have been reshaping the planet for thousands of years. But if we said it began during the Industrial Revolution or the Great Acceleration, then it sounds like modern industrial societies, maybe even certain countries, played a much bigger role. So I wonder, is it really fair to blame humanity as a whole?
That's a very good question, and it needs critical thinking.
Because not all humans have contributed equally to environmental damage. Some societies industrialized earlier, consumed more fossil fuels, and produced more waste. Meanwhile, other communities have lived much more sustainably. So maybe the term Anthropocene makes it sound like everyone is equally responsible, but in reality, that might not be true.
Yes, and that is exactly why some scholars suggest alternative terms. For example, some propose the term capital Capitalocene. They argue that it's not humanity as a whole that caused this environmental crisis, but rather specific economic systems, especially industrial capitalism, that prioritize growth, profit, and extraction.
So, in this view, the problem isn't simply that humans exist. It's that certain systems encourage overproduction, overconsumption, and exploitation of natural resources. Now it seems that the focus shifts from humans are destructive to certain systems are destructive.
Exactly, and that shift is important because if we say Anthropocene, it can sound like all humans are equally responsible, but in reality, industrialized nations have contributed far more carbon emissions than many developing countries.
Yeah, there are also indigenous communities that have lived sustainably for centuries with much smaller ecological footprints.
So the debate isn't only scientific, it's only ethical and political.
That makes sense. So the name we choose actually shapes how we assign responsibility.
Yes, and it also shapes how we imagine solutions. If the problem is simply human natural, then it feels almost impossible to fix. But if the issue lies in specific economic models or patterns of consumption, then change becomes more thinkable or even feasible.
Maybe the Anthropocene isn't just about defining a geological epoch. It's about recognizing that we humans are now a planetary force. And recognizing that doesn't necessarily mean being arrogant. It simply means becoming conscious of the scale of our influence on the Earth. Once we recognize that, the question becomes, what kind of force do we want to be? Are we going to continue as a force of extraction and acceleration? Or can we become a force of restoration and balance? Because the idea of Anthropocene reminds us of something uncomfortable. We are no longer just inhabitants of the earth. We are active shapers of it. And that realization comes with responsibility.
Yes, and perhaps the responsibility is exactly what makes this idea so important. The Anthropocene is not only a scientific term, it's also an invitation to rethink the relationship between humans and the planet. For a long time, we imagined ourselves as small actors within a vast natural world. But today, we are beginning to realize that our actions, Our technologies, economies, and everyday choices can leave traces that last for centuries. And once we see that, it becomes difficult to pretend that our choices are only personal.
I think that's what makes this conversation so powerful. At the beginning of the episode, we were asking when the Anthropocene began, whether it started with agriculture, the Industrial Revolution, or the Great Acceleration. But maybe the more important question isn't about the past, maybe it's about the future. If humans have truly become a geological force, then every decision we make, what we produce, what we consume, how we live, isn't just shaping our own lives. It's also shaping the planet we live on. Because whether we like it or not, we are already part of the story of the Earth. And the question is, what kind of story do we want to write next? I'm Teresa.
And I'm Sonia.
Thank you for being with us.
We hope today's discussion gave you something to think about.
Stay tuned and take care. We'll see you in the next episode of Afternoon Tea at the Literature Museum. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with your friends and family. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we'd like to hear your thoughts. Till next time!